Hey there friends, today's video is going to be not only a small lesson on accountability on both sides of this story. I'm sure you've heard one or the other or possibly both, but it's also going to show you how the media tries to frame things to make the soft-brained people out there really believe almost everything that is spoon-fed to them by the mainstream media. An armed Utah man accused of making violent threats against President Joe Biden was shot and killed by FBI agents hours before the president landed in the state Wednesday, authorities said. Special agents were trying to serve a warrant on the home of Craig Robertson in Provo, south of Salt Lake City, when the shooting happened at 6:15 a.m., the FBI said. Robertson was armed at the time of the shooting, according to two law enforcement sources who spoke to the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity to discuss details of an ongoing investigation. Now, those three paragraphs, if you will pretty much shape the way you look at this entire story. And most of the drive-by readers out there will usually not take the time to read an entire story anymore, unless maybe those first couple of paragraphs pique their interest. But for the most part, you're going to have people get all of their data from the first couple of paragraphs, and in some cases just the headline. The very first sentence says an armed Utah man accused of making violent threats. Okay, first of all, this is a very clear-cut indication that we need to demonize people who have guns. The sheer fact that the person speaking on behalf of law enforcement on the condition of anonymity tells me that they don't have very good information and that this is not common knowledge that the man was in fact armed. There is no official statement saying that the guy was armed when he was shot. Now, a little bit of backstory on this. This guy apparently had made several Facebook posts, social media posts, I believe it was all Facebook related though, threatening different people. He was definitely a Trump supporter according to everything that I've seen. I don't think this is a stretch like usually the mainstream media tries to paint everybody that's done something wrong as a Trump supporter. I believe this guy truly was. And he hated Biden. And he hated any of the people who were against Trump. And a lot of the things he said were 100% accurate. However, you don't threaten people. I'm a firm believer that the President of the United States and anybody else is no better than me. So I'm not going to go too far off into this, you don't threaten the President of the United States, because while it does carry more weight because the Secret Service will visit your house or the FBI and probably shoot you like they did here. Of course, that matters who the president is. You could threaten a Republican president, but in this case, can't threaten Biden. You're going to get visited potentially and more than likely shot. But I don't subscribe to the whole thing that Biden is better than me. Biden is a sack of feces that wouldn't know if he was being threatened or complimented. The guy is a brain dead vegetable. So I will never say that because this guy is the quote president that he carries more weight. However, there are laws, obviously, that you can't threaten Supreme Court justices, President of the United States, and high-ranking officials. Again, I'm totally against that because the same law should apply if you threaten me. This guy is no more important than I am. He might be considered the leader of the free world, but please, we all know that this guy is not the leader of anything right now. So again, I'm totally against that. I don't support that. But that's the law. You can't do that. This man, Robertson, threatened the president openly on social media, not just via a phone call or something like that. And he was visited at some point, and they told him come back with a warrant. I believe this is maybe back in May that he was visited about these particular postings. Now, it may sound like at this point I'm saying that it's all Robertson's fault. No, I'm not. Both sides are wrong in this. How does it become standard operating procedure for the FBI to show up at a 76-year-old, I think 74, 76 years old, a man in his mid-70s that literally walks with a cane, that is supervising, has living with him, he's the guardian of a blind son of his. How does that person constitute such a response that you saw here to become standard operating procedure just to shoot the guy? Now, they say he was armed. You notice in this video right here, I'm going to play this video for you real quick. Notice the shouting that went on. Okay, notice the flashbang that took place outside the house. I want to make a quick point to you guys. How does the FBI have this as their plan? How do they go to a man's house who's made a threat before? So they know he's probably jittery. You visited him before, so they, maybe he's anticipating your visit. I don't know. But you assume he's a threat, or you wouldn't be there. At 6:15 in the morning, and I get that they want the element of surprise. They want to catch the person off guard. More on that here in a second. But how do they, in their infinite wisdom, have a flashbang in the front yard go off after they're yelling at the guy? More than likely the guy's awake by now. It sounds like in that exchange of yelling that they were talking to him. I didn't hear him talking back, but it does sound like they are communicating with somebody. So it sounded to me like the guy must have been awake and aware of what was going on. Then you fire a flashbang outside, so you can't tell me that it was anything effective for inside the house to somehow discombobulate the guy or something like that, because you ignited this thing outside. So don't tell me it was an accident, because you guys are the trained professionals, right? So the only thing that I can assume is you did that on purpose. Now, why did you do that on purpose? Did you do that on purpose so the guy inside that you thought might be armed would automatically start shooting back at you so that you could cap him right there? Was that the intent all along, to set this guy up so that you could end his life in his own home right then and there and not have to worry about it anymore? That seems awfully suspicious to me. And let's not forget that the FBI right now is at an all-time low as far as approval and trust from the American people. They've been caught. Christopher Wray, their leader, has been caught lying about several things, including the whole Catholic thing. He lied about that a couple days ago, and they've been caught in tons of lies along the way. But I have to wonder, when a guy like Mr. Robertson, and again, I'm not taking either side. Both sides in this were wrong. You don't threaten the president, and you don't go in there with guns blazing to kill a 70-something-year-old man approaching 80 who walks with a cane. But nevertheless, I have to wonder if Mr. Robertson, being of an older age, seeing the decline of this nation so fast, so rapidly, in such a short period of time, with Biden at the helm, and of course Garland and other folks out there making decisions, I have to wonder if he's not looking at all these people who are lying, the Biden family who were busted for corruption, all these people who were doing all the illegal activities, the insider trading, all these things that these people are getting away with. So he might be thinking in his mind, and I'm supposing here, of course, he might be thinking in his mind, well, nobody else is held accountable for anything, so why should I worry about being held accountable? These people are encouraging not just Robertson, but other people out there. You see it with the escalation in crime. No one is being held accountable. A lot of these criminals out there are not held accountable. They're brought into prison. They're released on the street. Can you imagine an older person like Robertson continues to see this over and over again? Now, this guy has no history of, no criminal history, no bad history of any kind. So it's like he's reaching a tipping point. He's getting to a point where he's had enough, and that's when he started firing off the threats, which was stupid, and he should not have done that. I try to tell people all the time, these people, the FBI and those folks, are monitoring your social media. Everybody watching this right now, the FBI knows you watch my channel. You can't pop off in the comment section saying that you want to terminate the President of the United States in such a manner. It's just not something you're going to get away with. You will receive a visit. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story how I know that this is true. Back in 2010, I was doing a conservative talk show on television. This was back when the MMA, and I forget which MMA person, had made a personal threat about beating up Barack Obama. I'm not saying I did that. I'm not saying I was going to do it. I'm explaining the story for those of you guys, FBI and Secret Service, who are watching this. So I heard about the MMA guy make the personal threat. He got visited by the FBI or the Secret Service, right? So I put a video out the following week, kind of being a smart aleck. And the title of it was something about Louisiana guy threatens Barack Obama or threatens President Obama, something like that. When you clicked on the video, it was literally me challenging him, Barack Obama, to a basketball game. You know, Barack Obama made all these wild claims that he was this awesome, amazing basketball player and he was just so good, but nobody would ever show him shooting a basketball. So you often wondered, well, is it a lie like everything else? So I simply put a video out saying that I was challenging the president to a basketball game and that I would kick his butt in a basketball game. But the title said that I threatened him. I got visited. So I know this is a real thing. And I know there's very little tolerance, at least if it's a Democrat president. I realize that you can threaten Donald Trump's life all day long and completely get away with it. That is a proven fact. It was done many times over and nobody ever got visited. But I do know for a fact that you cannot threaten, no matter jokingly or anything like that, a Democratic president, and you certainly can't do it like this guy did it openly and saying that he wanted to end his life. You simply can't do that. Now, did the way the FBI carried this out, was that right? I don't know. You tell me. I would love to hear in the comment section below how you think this was right. I personally don't think it was right. I believe these guys knew who they were dealing with, right? They had already visited him one time. They knew this was a feeble old man. They knew he had a big mouth, but they also knew he was feeble. They knew way more about him than what we know today. And what we know today is that he was a regular going to church and that he made no threats. All his neighbors got along with him. He was a peaceful person in the community. Believe me, if we know that today, they definitely knew that. So they knew they were dealing with a person who had no signs of being an open threat to anybody, let alone the president, who was going to be an hour north of them in Salt Lake City. So there was no reason to assume this guy was a legitimate actual threat other than the posts he had made, which again, I got to repeat, they were inappropriate and he should not have done those. Yes, did they warrant a visit? I think so. I think they certainly warranted it. If I saw that about me, I would call, I don't know who I would call now. I used to call the FBI when I'd get death threats, but I don't know who I'm going to call now, just from a trust standpoint. They might come arrest me. But nevertheless, this guy out there was doing silly, stupid things. So yes, the FBI was warranted, and I often wonder why it wasn't Secret Service, because Secret Service is everywhere. And Secret Service is a lot less likely to approach you with guns blazing than the FBI. The FBI being a branch of law enforcement, Secret Service isn't necessarily like that. They're a little bit, they're not shaped and made and molded like the FBI. FBI is going in there to attack a threat. I also noticed in this story that this media outlet, this is the Associated Press. This is an organization who is going to disseminate this story to a lot of the other agencies out there who will simply take it, copy it, and paste it and carry on with it. You notice how they said the attack in here. They call this an attack. They don't talk about this being a raid by the FBI on Robertson. They actually describe this as an attack. Again, this is a perfect example of a dishonest media trying to paint a narrative and make gun owners look bad and anyone who supports Trump look bad. Now, because it does appear that the FBI Ruby Ridge this guy, they put out a statement. The statement reads, the incident began when special agents attempted to serve arrest and search warrants at a residence. The subject is deceased. The FBI takes all shooting incidents involving our agents or task force members seriously. In accordance with FBI policy, the shooting incident is under review by the FBI's Inspection Division. As this is an ongoing matter, we have no further details to provide. In other words, we take this matter seriously, so we are investigating ourselves to see if we did in fact do anything wrong. And if we did anything wrong, we will tell you that we did something wrong. So nothing's going to be determined that anything was done wrong. And you can best believe that this story that they say this guy is armed, let me explain this to you. And this is where you have to be careful as gun owners. This worries me all the time whenever you have the potential of federal agents entering your home, because the ATF has been radicalized and people are trying to justify their tyrannical actions against honest law-abiding Americans. They are saying this guy was armed. They also state that he had 20 guns in the house. If you have 20 guns in your house, and it doesn't look like this was a massive home that this man lived in, if you have 20 guns in your house, you are likely close by to them. The older you get, you are probably going to be closer to those weapons, right? In other words, it takes you longer to get to them. So you're probably going to bring them closer to you. Less likely to have children around the house at 70-something years old. May have it sitting on the nightstand. May have it sitting right next to your remote control when you're watching TV in the living room. Maybe on the kitchen counter. It doesn't matter. If he's got 20 guns in a state like Arizona, at this point, it's still not crazy like some of these states that make you lock them up in the safes. It's very possible this man had it sitting right next to him. Saying that he's armed is not justification for putting the man down. I don't care what his social media posts were. If these people are true law enforcement, they know enough about his background. They knew they weren't dealing with a hardened criminal. And to say that he was armed is simply their meal ticket to justify this shooting. And that sickens me. Because most of you watching this right now, if the ATF kicks your door in because they think you have some kind of little device, accessory, that they deem illegal in the future at some point because Congress won't do their job, you will be considered armed. So whether they put you down or not, you will be considered armed because you have guns in the home. And most of you probably will carry them on your side. So you will certainly, by the definition of the term, be armed whenever they kick your door in. That scares me because that is their justification for ending people's lives because, hey, they were armed. Where was the gun? Was it unholstered? Was a shot fired at you? And again, I go back to that flashbang thing. This guy might have thought that whoever had a gun aimed at him in the home might have fired it at him. That was totally inappropriate to fire that flashbang outside. But this story worries me from both sides. Again, from our standpoint, I don't care how much you dislike the dirtbag in the White House or anybody else for that matter. We can't pop off. We are held to a different standard than the wackos on the far left. We have to make sure that we are doing the right thing, and that does not include making inappropriate threats to anybody online because these people are looking for a reason to come after you. And the FBI, you got to do better. This is what makes me more than anything want somebody else to be president of this country. Because somebody's got to do something about these agencies out there that are running rogue like they are right now. This was totally inappropriate. Whoever ran this operation does not know what they're doing. This was not set up the right way. This was set up to kill this man. This was not set up to bring this man in. None of this was approached appropriately. They had every intention of leaving this man's property with him deceased. Oh, and by the way, once he did die, you know what they did? They put his corpse on the sidewalk out front for 2 hours and said that it was law enforcement's responsibility to deal with the dead body. Doesn't the FBI roll into municipalities and counties and parishes all the time and assume responsibility of that particular operation whenever they deem it necessary? But yet they can't finish the job dealing with a dead body that they just killed? This is a horrible story. I don't like any aspect of it, but it is a lesson to all of us to watch what you say, do, and how you do it. Because we have the wrong people calling the shots right now. And they don't care about you.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.